the purification of the mind, and the mind is perturbed whenever there is a desire comes into picture. Desire will come because of the vasanas, and vasanas are accumulating because of the previous karma. So karma leads to vasanas, vasanas leads to desires, desires leads to agitation in the mind, agitation leads to action, action will give back again vasanas. So we get into the vicious cycle here, and the question always ask, the people ask, how did the ignorance start? How did the avidya start? So every one of the Vedantim has to accept either you start with the ignorance, or you start with the vasanas, or you start with the karma. So actions that are there, that have been previously done. So anywhere this is an endless cycle, because it's a beginningless, because ignorance is beginningless. Therefore vasanas are also beginningless. Therefore desires also coming from the vasanas. So what happens, or how do I get rid of this? Suppose somehow if I reduce the vasanas, then the number of desires will be less, and therefore the extent of my agitations in the mind also will be less, and mind will be calm and serene for most of the time. And if there are very little vasanas, or very number of vasanas are completely reduced, then the desires have completely reduced other than few, and mind is mostly agitation less, except when the desire comes in, and ultimately when the mind will be always serene, and that's exactly what implication of that is. Now all that implication involves, therefore, is the light is there also. We need we didn't turn on the light when the power went value. So vasanas, actions and all that. So how do I reduce the vasanas? Ultimately, purification of the mind is indirectly related to the reduction of the vasanas. Suppose if there is a case where there is no vasanas at all, completely eliminated, then what happens? There is no self-centered desires. So whatever desires that come is due to the loka kalyanam, for the benefit of the totality. That does not cause agitations, but those agitations are only for actions that will help the other communities, the Lord himself or the whole community itself. So no vasanas, no selfish desires, no agitations, and the mind is of that person will be calm and quiet and serene most of the time. So how do I reduce those vasanas? Because every action will lead to vasanas, vasanas will lead you to asanas. So this vicious cycle, how do I get out of the vicious cycle? It's not by action, then I have to do something then. If I have to do something, then it should not give me, that doing should not give me the vasanas. And that's where the yoga shastra comes into picture. This is what is actually called conditioning the mind. Mind is conditioned not because you brought up in some way that J. Krishnamurti talks about, but because of the vasanas, your mind is conditioned to think in that direction. I think this way, you think that way. Why? Because my vasanas are like that, your vasanas are like that. And the vasanas can be classified according to the gunas, the tamasic, rajasic and sattvic vasanas, and all are part of that discussed in the Gita. So the vasanas came into picture by deliberate actions, so have to get rid of by deliberate actions only. So therefore that is the essence of Yoga Shastram. So Bhagavad Gita is a Yoga Shastra and Brahma Vidya. And Brahma Vidya is teaching about the essence of what is absolute truth. At the same time, how do I get that? How do I reach that? Is also a methodology is prescribed. So what is the methodology? Methodology is essentially reduction of the vasanas. And depending upon the type of vasanas, I have to have methodology. So this is what essentially Krishna teaches as a karma yoga. So karma yoga and then the bhakti yoga or upasana yoga are methods to purify the mind. And this is what essentially we call about Chitta Vishalata and Chitta Ekagrata, the expansion of the mind and the concentration of the mind, which are able to because of the purity of the mind. So how do I get purity? Karma Yoga helps me in the expansion of the mind. That's called Chitta Vishalata. And the Upasana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga helps me for Chitta Ekagrata, concentrating on the Ishtadevata or Dhyanam and so on. So what is Karma Yoga and what is Upasana Yoga? That's what now we will discuss in terms of purification to get the required qualifications or to acquire the required qualifications so that I become an adhikari or means a qualified student for self-realization. This is what essentially implication of that is. So what is the Karma Yoga? What is Karma Yoga? So how do I explain the Karma Yoga or what need to be done in the Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga involves essentially the whole third chapter of Gita discusses this. And before that, Krishna gives you a law of action. So for Karma Yoga, we need to understand first the law of action. And that is discussed in the second chapter of Gita. And there's a famous sloka, it says, Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma palaheturbuho mate sangostva karmani. So this is essentially law of action and results. And this is an absolute law. So therefore, we have Newton's law, for every action there is a reaction and all that. But this is a more absolute level, says what exactly is an action and what are the results. So it says karmani eva adhikaraste. It says adhikara, people, the simple translation is you have a right. But it's not a right here, you have a choice in action. Karmani eva, you action alone you have a choice. Ma paleshu kadachana, never in the results. This is a famous statement of Krishna. You have only choice in action because as a human being, you are provided with an intellect and you have to decide. Decide means you have to choose. And you cannot but choose, as you are always at a crossroads, to do, not to do other way. That's always your choice. And you have to exercise the choice, and the next moment once you exercise the choice, and next moment again you have to exercise. So it is a continuous exercise of choices because you have to act all the way. So one cannot but act. So that's what Krishna first states, Nahikachit kshanamapi jatu tushtasya karma kartu. As long as you are born and living in this society, you cannot but act. No, I don't want to go. I go to Himalayas or somewhere. There also you have to act. Because even to take care of your body, you have to act. You have to feed, you have to go to the process of the body requirements. All that is required. So therefore, action cannot be avoided. Nahikachit chanamapi, even 1 second you have to breathe, you have to sleep, you have to eat. All those things are the bodily functions. Then at the body level and at the emotional level and at the intellectual level, people are propelled to act all the time. So therefore you cannot but act. But if you act, you get into vasanas. So how do I act without getting vasanas? And that is called Karma Yoga. So why he said Karmani eva adhikaraste? Why you have only choice in the action, but I cannot choose the result? Because I am not omnipotent to choose. I can choose an action to get what I want. I may get, I may not get. So the result doesn't depend on me. Result depends upon the action. So if I have a stone and I want the stone to go all the way about 1,000 miles from here, and if I throw it, it will stop somewhere there. Then I say, I am not getting the result that I want. He says, you stupid fellow, the action doesn't have the result there. So I may visualize the result, I may aim for a result, but I may not get the result what I want because the action has to be appropriate for the result. And even if I throw, and I want to throw a ball into the basket, and even if I throw, I perform an action with the aim that it will go, but suddenly somebody else can come and stop it. That I have no choice there. So there are other factors that are beyond my control also come into picture in framing the results of the action. So therefore, I can only act, and the result will come depends upon on not only myself but several other factors beyond myself. Laws of the nature, because if I throw a stone, and where the stone is going to land, how the stone is going to land, what is the path it takes depends upon, or the trajectory of the stone depends upon the gravitational force, frictional forces, and other factors like a heavy wind and all that, all other factors beyond my control. And I cannot control them to give me the result that I want. I only have to depend, and I am not the author of those gravitational force and this force and that frictional force and the speed of the air, all the things I am not author. So who is the author? Since it's beyond my control, I bring the Daivim. Daivim means that which is beyond my control, it belongs to the Lord. So Lord is the one who frames the results. That's why he says, Karmani eva adhikaraste. You have only choice in performing an action, with the hope that the result will come the way you want. If the result doesn't match the way you want, then you have to adjust the action. Suppose I have a basketball and I try to put it to the basket, it is towards a little bit left of the basket, and next time I have to adjust myself so that it goes, compensate for it so that it goes into the basket. If I overcompensate it, then I have to again come back. So I have to do trial and error to come out what is the law that gives me the correct result. I can learn the laws, gravitational forces and all that, and manipulate the laws because I cannot control it, but I can operate in such a way that my result will be according to the laws. So karmani eva, you have only choice in the action, not in the results. I cannot choose any result that I want. However, next action I can perform. That's one reason why I have only choice and not the result. And most powerful reason is that I can only act in the present, and the result follows the action. Result is always future to the action. I can only act in the present, and when the result comes, I have no control on the result since action has already been performed. Therefore, since the future is in the hands of the Lord, we say He is the one who gives the results. Karma paladata. So we define the Lord as the one who gives the results of the action. The results of the action are given by the laws governing the nature, and he is the author of the laws. Therefore we call him as a karma paladata. All that is emphasized in the law of action. So I can only act. And by reaction I may mess up the problem. I can be sharp enough to know what should be the correct action since the previous action did not give the result I want. So I can retune my action in such a way that I get the result I want. That's what essentially a successful person does. Unsuccessful person is the one who keeps repenting and not performing properly. Oh, I did like that, I failed, and so I cannot pass and all that. If you do that, then you will never pass. Okay, I failed. Next time I am going to do better because I didn't study properly, or this and this I missed. Therefore, next time I study. So I have to plan properly to get the result I want. That's what is called intelligence. Lord has given the intelligence for us to think, and if I don't know, or if my intellect is not trained enough, then it is my duty to tap the intelligence of others to help me in the process, and that becomes a cooperative action. And Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, how do I reduce the vasanas? How vasanas are the bondage, because I have to be born to exhaust the vasanas. If there is no vasanas, then I have no need for me to born, because there are no likes and dislikes. But to get to that stage, because I already have vasanas, so first I had to exhaust them or neutralize them. And all vasanas are picturized as snakes in religion. So Pannaga Bhushana, the Lord Shiva is called Pannaga Bhushana. Pannaga is nothing but vasanas that are under control of the Lord. They cannot even do anything, because though the forms have been removed, neutralized, and Lord Narayana sleeps on the snake, and all the 5 or 7 hoods are inwards looking at the Lord. 7 hoods are nothing but the 5 jnanendriyas plus the mind and the intellect, or the ones that are looking inwards and only act as the Lord says. That's what is called surrenderances. All that symbolism only. So therefore, how do I act without getting vasanas? Krishna gives a recipe, and that's what is essentially in the 3rd chapter. It says, Yajnartham karma anyatra karma bandhanaha. So, Yajnartham karma nonyatra. So, karma bandhanaha. So, Yajnartham karma anyatra karma bandhanaha. So, do the action for the sake of yajna. So, Krishna is advising, as for the sake of yajna, if you do, then that action will not be binding. Otherwise, it's going to become binding. Binding means it gives vasanas. If you do for the yajna, then not only it doesn't give new vasanas, previous vasanas gets neutralized. And that's how I eliminate the vasanas, or reduce the vasanas, or purify the mind. What is yajna? Yajna is essentially, several explanations have been offered, and the most striking explanation by Swami Chinmayanandaji is, yajna is defined as a cooperative action where every component performs their part, their best, in a self-sacrificing way for the benefit of totality. That's called yajna. What does that mean? Yajna means a cooperative action. So in olden days they used to perform yajnas, and in yajnas everybody have to pitch in, because the whole society gets involved in the yajna. So carpenter has to do, the milk fellow has to give milk, carpenter has to build the yajnashala. So everyone is doing their part, their best for the benefit of the total, which is yajna, for the society. And when they do their part, then they don't get bound by the vasanas of the action, and therefore whatever they do will be eliminating the vasanas. So that's what is called yajnartham karma anyatra, otherwise it will cause bondage. So if I perform the action in a self-sacrificing way, that means there is no selfishness involved. I want the whole society to perform, or all the group that I am working on, whole organization has to work on, has to succeed, then I will also succeed automatically. So that will not give me bondage. So now this is a very powerful methodology that Krishna gives, and any society is deteriorating only because they are not acting in the spirit of yajna. If everybody does for the benefit of the totality, then totality will prosper, and totality will include everybody in that, so everybody will prosper. If I am doing only for my sake and not for the other's sake, I want others also do for my sake, then it is a deterioration of society. That's not yajna. So that's why if a manager performs, everyone is performing, to make sure everyone does their part, their best for the benefit of the organization, then the organization will prosper, and result of that will be distributed to the people according to their efforts for the success of the yajna. If you take more than what you have put in, then that's called stealing. That's what Krishna says. So everything is methodically discussed in the 3rd chapter of Gita, called Karma Yoga. And in the process, because I am performing not for selfish sake, but for the benefit of the total. Now look at each individual level, this operation. I as an individual have the three components, the body, mind and intellect. If all the components perform their part, their best, then as a human being I can succeed, because the mind wants same thing, body is doing same thing, and intellect, they're all in line and doing cooperatively. When intellect wants something, mind doesn't want to do it, mind wants somewhere else, then there's a disparity. An integrated person is the person where the intellect, mind and body are in line. There's no crookedness. And that's what Krishna calls it Arjavam. In the 13th chapter, he says the Arjavam is required for self-realization. Straightforwardness. What I think, what I feel, what I do are in line. So now it's not that what I think is different from what I feel and what I do. They say, watch my tongue. Well, tongue is saying something, but he is doing something else. So that is called crookedness. Crooked means they are not in line. So Arjavam, that's why it's called Arjuna. Arjuna is called, he is the one who is straightforward. And that's why teaching is for Arjuna, not for Yudhishthira or for Nakula or for anybody else. Because Arjavam is required, straightforwardness is required in order to go, arrow has to go straight to hit the target. And that's exactly what Krishna emphasizes in the Karma Yoga. Also Yajnartham, Yajna also means, the Vishnu Sahasranama says, Yajna is the name of the Lord. So Yajno, Yajnakrutam and so on and so forth. There is in the Vishnu Sahasranama, Yajna comes as the part of the Sahasranamas, 1000 names of the Lord. And means Yajnartham means for the sake of the Lord you perform the action. So for the sake of the Lord, and that is what essentially Ishwararpita Buddhi. I offer my action, I am doing this for the sake of the Lord. So what do I do? Puja. Puja is for whose sake? Puja is for the sake of the Lord. You are praying the Lord. Patram, Pushpam, Palam, Toyam, Yome, Bhaksha, Prayachati. You do whatever, you offer something to me. He does not, thank God he is not taking anything that you offer. He only takes the bhakti part. He'll come back again. But this offering to the Lord means I have desires. Remember, I have vasanas, I have desires and actions. But that action you offer it to the Lord. I cannot control the desires, I cannot control the vasanas, but I can offer my actions to the result as my prayer to the Lord. So all other prayers are only symbolic. When I go into the world after leaving the temple, Swamiji calls us, take Lord with you. Not that Lord Vigna may have to leave it there, but in your mind you carry the Lord with you, because Lord is there in everyone's heart. That means recognize the presence of the Lord wherever He is, wherever you are. So perform the action, oh Lord, I am performing for you. But when you perform the action for the Lord we can only accept it only if it is a dharmic action. Because wherever dharma is there, Lord is there. This is what the teaching of the Veda, the Bhishma says to Duryodhana. Oh, I brought all the army, and Krishna, he doesn't want to fight, and I didn't want him, and Arjuna was stupid enough to take Arjuna instead of leaving all this army for me. He thought Arjuna was a stupid, and he was smart by selecting the army instead of Arjuna, instead of Krishna, who doesn't want to even fight. But he says, you are a stupid. Wherever Krishna is, there is going to be victory. Wherever Dharma is, there is going to be Krishna is. So therefore, Arjuna wants to make sure that he is on the right side. So wherever the Lord, when I am offering to the Lord will be there. It should be a dharmic action. So I cannot commit suicide and say I am offering to the Lord. Lord will not accept it. So therefore, the driver has come. So you have to understand this in such a way that yajnartham karma anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. So whenever I perform an action for the sake of the Lord, then the result will be neutralized by the vasanas, will not be there, and therefore the mind gets purified in the process. And that is essentially the importance of trying to follow the rules, or offering to the Lord, as Lord says, you offer it to me. And that is what becomes a karma yoga, becomes Ishwar Arpita Buddhi. Arpita Buddhi means offering to the Lord. Then it gets neutralized, because whatever is offered, the results come from Him, because now I accept the result as a prasadam. Prasadam means if you go to a temple and you offer something, and the pujari, the priest, gives you something back, either a fruit or a flower or something, he gives back, and you take it as coming from the Lord. So that's called prasadam. Prasadam means that it is offering from the Lord. So when it offered, that essentially means that it says, I have a reverential attitude towards what I get from the Lord. So if it is a sweet I take, if it is a heart, if I don't question what it is, how much it is, why I am getting only this much and how other fellow is getting, because that's what is prasada buddhi means. So if implication of this offering to the Lord, Ishwararpita buddhi, means I have to accept the results of the action, whatever that comes, whether I like it or not. If I don't like it, then perform the next action better than the previous action. Again you are offering to the Lord. Again it will be. So it becomes a kala chakram. It is a continuous wheel of actions. When I perform the action and everybody perform the action to the best that they can, then Krishna says the results have to come. And that's what he calls, when you perform the yajna, then the rains will come. That means the gods have to rain down the results. Gods are called the phenomenal forces that give the results of the action. And therefore they have to give appropriate results. And this way I purify the mind, I reduce the vasanas, and slowly the vasanas become less and less. So karma yoga is the most efficient way of reducing the vasanas to a lowest category. So how much I have to do karma yoga? That also Krishna says. He gives an example, as long as I have not climbed the hearts and sat down, I have to make an effort to climb. But once I have climbed the hearts, then there is that's called yoga arudaha. Once I have climbed the hearts, then there is no more attempts to climb anymore, because I already is in the seat. The same way I had to do karma yoga until I can go to jnana yoga, or my mind is purified enough that I can listen to the talks and understand the talks. It may not be completely 100% pure, but pure enough for me to be able to understand, because the mind has purified enough to appreciate the Vedanta. So therefore there is no 100% purity any time, because it's a thermodynamically impossible. You cannot have 100% gold, it will be 0.99999 and so on and so forth. Therefore, in the same way, you don't have to wait for the complete purity. You have to wait until you are able to sit through. Otherwise, you cannot even sit through. You become rajasic. And those people who are restless in the even Vedanta class, because their mind is somewhere else. So for them, it's better to do karma yoga than to do upasana yoga or bhakti yoga or jnana yoga. This is what Krishna teaches, and says, why are you, Lord Krishna, asking me to do this yuddham? Why you are glorifying one side, the Sthita Prajna and Jnana Yoga, and I also want to go to Himalayas and do Jnana Yoga. Why are you forcing me to fight? It says, Lokismin dividanishta pura prokta mayanaga jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. So it depends upon the adhikari, qualified. If you are qualified jnana yoga, then do. Otherwise you will be kicked out of that place, because you will become restless there. So therefore first prepare your mind, And just like if I want to go to learn quantum mechanics, prepare myself first from classical mechanics and all that, then enter into quantum mechanics. Otherwise, all I think is only alpha, beta, gamma only, and nothing else will. I know E, I know M, and I know C. Doesn't mean that I understand what is E is equal to mc squared. For that, I need to prepare my mind to understand what it means. The same way, a preparation becomes an essential means to go to the next level. So from a tamasic level to a rajasic level to a sattvic level is the evolution. This is the one aspect of yajnartham. In the next talk, we'll talk about Panchamaha Yajnas for purification. With this, we stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.